Welcome, everybody. Today we have a very special guest.
I knew early on that I wanted to make movies.
It's such a difficult industry because there's a lot of luck involved.
I mean, look at American Werewolf in London, look at The Thing, look at The Fly. Look at these films that have really withstood the test of time.
I sculpted this Captain Kirk mask, and they didn't sell particularly well, but then John Carpenter came in, said, can you paint one white and spray paint his hair black?
I was maybe 9 or 10 years old, and it scared the living shit out of me.
You're just racking up these people that you grew up watching. They're in your films. Is that surreal?
There were 35 directors there. If there had been a bomb dropped on that restaurant, never another good horror movie.
Benet's Bloody Bits.
Welcome to Triple B. My name is Jason Benet. The first time I heard of actress Jill Whitlow was in the box office smash Porky's, released by 20th Century Fox in the early 80s. It's one of those rare instances where a sex comedy gets a theatrical release and then makes a buttload of money. And obviously it spawned a few sequels as well as a reboot. Next up, Jill would star in Weird Science for John Hughes. Everybody remembers Kelly LeBrock in that film. That's movie's a hoot, and it's also a cult favorite. And then next, she would work with Fred Dekker on Night of the Creeps, which is an homage to 1950s science fiction films with killer slugs from outer space. I have a lot more to say about that film. I was recently on another YouTuber's channel to do a deep dive retrospective, about an hour long. So I will link that when the time comes. But after Night of the Creeps, Jill would do a film called Twice Dead. And it's one that I read in high school, probably when I was a junior or senior. I grabbed it from the Ma and Pa video store. It tells the story of a stage actor from the 1930s named Tyler Walker. He's in his home. He's dancing with a woman played by Jill Whitlow. Eventually, he grabs a knife, stabs her in the back, but then she turns into like a mannequin and a dummy. So you're kind of like, what's going on here? It's what's real, what's not real. Eventually, people come to his door of his home, basically to evict him. He's going to lose his house, and then he gets a rope and a noose, then hangs himself. Then we fast forward to the 1980s, and it's 1980s between the hair, the clothes. It's always like seeing an old friend when you're watching a film from this era. And you have Jill Whitlow with her brother and mom and dad. They inherited a home, but they've recently gone through some economic struggles. But when they get to their dilapidated house, which is in the middle of the hood of Southern California, it's not the best part neighborhood in Los Angeles. And there's already a group of punks, kind of squatters that have taken over and just kind of made it their pad. And they don't like the fact that somebody's moving into the house. They look like straight out of Lost Boys. The earrings, the black leather jackets, it's too funny. Actually, one of the guys' name is, the actor is Jonathan Chapin. He went from Twice Dead to working on Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. And it looked like he stepped off one set onto the other because his look is exactly the same. But anyways, the father gets out the shotgun, runs them off, but they basically play cat and mouse most of the film, where they're picking on these two teenagers, making their life miserable. Eventually, they meet up at a park, and this is when Todd Bridges from Different Strokes makes his first appearance. He's playing basketball, and Jill Whitlow's brother plays with him, and here come the punks to make their, give them crap and chase them around. And eventually, Jill Whitlow's character and her brother, they're kind of fed up. And this is kind of bonkers 80s cinema. Somehow they get a hold of chloroform and like makeup effects and props from the school. And they know that it's kind of like a siege movie at some point. It's kind of like a home invasion. Their home, the family, typical 80s, the mom and dad leave. And, even though their safety of their kids is at stake, they got to go take care of some business. But Jill Whitlow and her brother are like, enough's enough. One by one, these bad guys start to come in the house. They, put the chloroform on the face, and then they have a prop of that person to make it look like they're dead. And as each, bad guy comes in, it looks like, they've killed my friend. So they punk them. They have a good time with them, but eventually they make their way back later on, days later. And for this time, they're out for the kill. They're enough of this playing around. And they really, they kill Jill Whitlow's cat. Unfortunately, it's obviously it's totally phony. But for people that don't like, animals getting killed in films, you probably won't like that part. But trust me, it's no cannibal holocaust. But this is where Tyler, his spirit, really comes back. And I'm not sure what takes him so long. I mean, he could have taken out these bad guys earlier on, but they get a hold of remember that dummy, the mannequin from the beginning of the film? It's still in the house. They take a motorcycle to it and rip it up, and then he starts killing them off with a lot of creative kills. You got a dumbwaiter beheading. You got a shotgun blast. So it definitely picks up steam. I would say the first 45 minutes of this film is kind of slow. Then the latter half, it does get better. Jill Whitlow is not known for doing nudity. She did do a piece in Night of the Creeps, but she does not do it in Twice Dead. You might get her in a little bit of a nightgown scenario, but that's about it. She's been very open. That wasn't really something she wanted to do. She made an exception for Night of the Creeps. So sorry, guys, but there's some other girls that are ladies of the gang who get naked, and so that's good. There's a really great electrocution scene, basically an orgasm leading into an electrifying death, which is probably the highlight of the film. But really what this film is about, it's kind of like Love Never Dies. The character of Tyler, the stage actor, and Jill Whitlow, they're kind of the younger versions of like the descendants. Jill Whitlow is related to the great aunt who owned the home, who was with Tyler, the stage actor. And so the punk from the film looks exactly like Tyler. So you realize, maybe, is it reincarnation? It's just through the bloodline that Love Never Dies, that they were meant to be together. So that's kind of like what leads the film, is the love that they share. Tyler Walker kind of hangs out in the mirrors. It always makes his presence known. And so it's kind of a love story, a slasher film, 80s trash film. It's produced, New Concord, which was one of Roger Corman's companies. Scream Factory put it out on Blu-ray. It went out of print, but the usual Scream Factory shenanigans, they recently found or reprinted some. So I was able to pick up the Blu-ray by itself. There was a two double feature disc released many years ago, but I kind of wanted to own it on its own. So I was happy to buy it, even though the price tag was way too much. Anyways, I will digress away from Scream Factory bashing. But anyways, Jill Whitlow, after Twice Dead, her career, changed. Motherhood beckoned. She had a family. That became more important than her film career. So she did a little bit of television work over the years, and recently she did a pair of horror films, but the 1980s really was her time to really break out. And I think she is a star within the horror community for sure. Night of the Creeps, as Cynthia Cronenberg, she's always going to be remembered for that role. But Twice Dead is a nice little follow-up. It's, you have to be forgiving of certain films from the 1980s with the plots and the twists and turns. I mean, only in the 80s can you do a movie like a Teen Wolf, where, somebody grows into a wolf and plays a basketball game. Twice Dead is kind of like that film. You just kind of have to, throw caution to the wind when it comes to, things making sense, and just have fun with it. The movie is a hoot. It is available on disc through Scream Factory's website. I definitely think you should check it out. It's a fun film. It's nice to see Jill in the spotlight again. I interviewed her many years ago. I did a phone interview, and she's a sweetheart. We talked about this film in detail way back in my killer film days. So that interview is probably almost 15 years old. And but anyways, I want to talk about Twice Dead. Just watched it over the weekend. Thought it was really fun. It was nice going back to some high school Ma and Pa rental video store days and remembering this film that the artwork always stuck out. It sat on the shelf, and I grabbed it. It just kind of was meant to be. And yeah, Jill Whitlow was always the girl next door. She's a very attractive, fetching lady. And yeah, I think I'm not the only one that crushes on her. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there. You can let me know in the comment section. What do you think of Jill? The films she's done, Porky's, Weird Science, Night of the Creeps, Twice Dead. That's kind of like what she's going to be remembered for. And I don't think, and she's very welcoming to her fan base. She does conventions. I believe at one time she was based in Florida, did some cons out there, and she was very appreciative of her fans and didn't realize that all these years later that people remembered those films. But anyways, thank you guys for watching and listening. I appreciate your time. Stay scared and talk to you soon.